Great, thank you. My name is Ian Faris from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our fifth and final panel on future-proofing chambers. In putting together this panel, I had a number of discussions with chamber colleagues from across the country, and a few themes rose to the top in these discussions. And chambers are evergreen organizations, always looking for new ways to improve their value proposition, enhance the vibrancy of local communities. So today we brought together a number of chamber leaders that are championing many of these issues that are of interest to our network. First, we have Bridgitte Anderson, President and CEO of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade. Then Jennifer Garries, CEO of the Leduc, Nisku, and Wetaskiwin Regional Chamber of Commerce. And, I forgot to mention, we have to hold our applause, but that's okay, that's okay. And finally, Todd, the CEO of the Brampton Board of Trade. So how about a warm welcome for those panelists? Hello? Yep. This is on, great. So let's jump right into the discussion. And I wanted to start with Bridgitte. And diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's what we call it at the Canadian Chamber. DEI, EDI, lots of other acronyms for it. But DEI is central and essential to the fairness of opportunity, competitiveness of business, economic growth, and our nation's prosperity. A vast body of research has documented the fact that when done well, DEI in the workplace can lead to increased revenue, reduced costs, greater innovation, increased employee engagement, productivity, and commitment. So, Bridgitte, since your Board of Trade started investing in DEI, what are some of the results that you've seen, and what are some of the challenges and opportunities that you see in this work?
Thanks very much, Ian. It is such a vast umbrella that really encapsulates what is included into equity, diversity, and inclusion. And if I was to really back up, I became CEO at the Board of Trade in November of 2019, so 4 months before the pandemic. But I had long been involved with the Board of Trade, and I was the chair of what was then called the Women's Leadership Circle, which became the Women's Leadership Council. And even when I was the chair of that council, it was a really important tool to increase member value. But I could see it was a narrow focus, and just the scope was quite narrow. So when I started thinking about how to really enhance member value and really attract new members and also sponsors, and to really broaden our base, it was clear to me that we needed to broaden that scope. And so we evolved that council to the Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Council in May of 2020. And immediately started engaging with new members, new sponsors, and really getting a very full idea of what we could be doing to support our membership and our own internal organization as well. So one of the first things that we did is we signed an exclusive partnership with the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion and started offering training for our members and some non-members as well. And since then, we have trained over nearly 1,000 people and certified them in diversity and inclusion training. And it has also brought a really new perspective to everything that we do. Our events are much more diverse and inclusive. Our own organization, our board the board of directors signed on to the 50-30 challenge and has met that the last couple of years since we signed on. But then we started to think and understand more that it really is a journey around diversity and inclusion. And under that umbrella includes reconciliation and also ESG, which was spoke about earlier today. So we branched out into ESG training as well. And we, in a partnership with the British Columbia Institute of Technology, we launched the first of its kind micro-credential in ESG fundamentals. And even, I think our first cohort was earlier this year, and we've already trained 70 companies. So we understand that there's a huge desire for individuals and companies and our members to go on this journey with us. And so we're just trying to, a hockey analogy, skate to where the puck is going, and we're just trying to be there and help members and help our own organization to be more inclusive and more diverse and really offer training and support to get us all on that journey more.
Well, thank you. You talked about the micro-credentials. That I think we're going to discuss a little later in our policy session as well. But who are these people that you're training? Are they members that you're training? Are they non-members? Just I think some of the chambers might be interested in that.
Both. And so while we have, our members we're first in line to come to us, I would also say that we were oversubscribed from the very beginning and just kept offering more and more training through the CCDI, level 1, level 2, and it really just started growing their skills as well. And the Diversity Inclusion Leadership Council is a group of about 20 individuals, and diverse in every kind of perspective that you can think of. We have people from the accessibility community. We have people from all different ethnic communities. We have every kind of diversity perspective that you want. And it is those people who have been really leading the charge and encouraging us as an organization to take the next step in our journey and the journey for our members.
Great, thank you. I'm going to turn to Jennifer. I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this. You might even have a new acronym. I know we'll get more acronyms as we go down the line.
Yeah, so DEI, EDI, and so we actually partnered with our Government of Alberta for a Labour Market Partnership Grant, and through that we launched our Welcoming Workplace series. So this is leading our members into an introduction to EDI. But we did a 4-part series on working with and attracting newcomers in the intergenerational workspace, equity, diversity, and inclusion training, and as well as an Indigenous workshop training. So we were able to have that partnership with the government, a large grant, so we were able to roll out this program for our members, and this is kind of our first step into going through this. So,
yeah, well, those are 2 great examples. Todd, I know you and I have had discussions on this. What do you have, Dad?
I am fortunate in Brampton in that we have a very diverse community, 259 different cultures, 115 different languages, and we were, I think 50-30, long before 50-30 challenge was a thing, and it's fortunate that we were, because it's when you bring about culture change, when you bring about diversity in your leadership, when you change how you nominate and how you hire and promote, that's when you get diversity of thought. And when you get that diversity of thought, that's when you get real innovation that serves your members, not only today, but in the future as well. So we look at culture change, inclusion, diversity, equity, accessibility as a great idea to bring about competitive advantage.
Great, thank you. I also want to remind everyone that we're using the Slido app for our questions. So if you want to load in your questions, we're going to do a few more rounds, but then we'll come to your audience questions. Anyone else want to chime in on this? Anyone, any thoughts?
Well, I just maybe go back to what I said about the group of 20 individuals or so from our Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Council. And it is so important to have their leadership. I'm a Caucasian woman, quite clearly. And so I can't speak from any lived experience around being a racialized or marginalized individual. So I really look to those individuals to help guide us on the kind of training, resources, and also steps that we need to take as an organization. Internally, we also did our own EDI audit, and we have those findings, and we're now going through those recommendations and understanding what steps we need to take as an organization to make sure that we're a more diverse organization.
Thank you. And I know, I know the 3 of you. I know you're all very open to it. And I suspect that many members of the Chamber Network will be reaching out. There are lots of ideas, and you've obviously shown some leadership on this. There's lots of examples across Canada, and we're going to be showcasing those as we go forward. But thank you on that. I want to shift gears now a little bit and talk about another issue that many chambers have raised. And I'll turn to you, Jennifer. This is the issue of chamber collaboration. That can include partnerships, it include mergers. Mergers obviously, or in some jurisdictions with some chambers, it could be a bit of a difficult subject. And I know that from experience, it was a bit of a taboo subject, but now it's certainly opening up. But you've got lots of ideas on other ways to do things, and I think you've done a number of them yourself at your chamber. What's sort of the benefits, looking in hindsight, what are the benefits of the different combinations and various collaborations that you've done with the network?
Yeah, for sure. So we've done both sides. We have done a merger. We merged with a neighboring chamber in 2016. It was in the next county over. So we are fortunate in Leduc and the Wetaskiwin area that we are kind of in the middle of a cluster of 10 different municipalities. So in Leduc County we have 7, and moving over to our next county, Wetaskiwin, we have 3. So I know our name is very lengthy, Leduc, Nisku, and Wetaskiwin Regional Chamber, but we were also able to secure the website yourchamber.ca. So everywhere we go within our entire region, we are just the chamber, and if you need to reach out to us, it's yourchamber.ca. So we don't have to use this lengthy name and everything. And Nisku was important to us because it is our largest industrial park in our provincial area, and so it was nice to kind of have that name stake as well. And so we started, we grew our staff actually in 2016 from 5 to where we are at 13 right now, and we started a merger with the neighboring chamber, as I mentioned, Wetaskiwin, in 2016. The staff had walked off the job. The chamber ran themselves into a $20,000 deficit. They actually threw a Loverboy concert, and nobody came. So, and
Nobody came to Loverboy?
No one came to.
What?
It's all about how you market, I guess, right? So, and they also had $16,000 out there in Contra. So I know Contra is a dirty word in here, but so we got out there in the first year, worked with their board, and we paid all of that back within the first year, and they were back in the black, and it was so successful for us. And it's amazing what you can do with a chamber. All chambers can make money. You just have to know how to make the money for that area, for that chamber. So that was just one example in 2016. Fast forwarding now, we have a service agreement to run another chamber next door to us where they have 1 staff person. And just another good example, so it's 1 staff person running a chamber. Again, there isn't a lot of dollars there. Their golf tournament last year made $2,000, and this was just last year, this year we made them $15,000 off their golf tournament. So when you are working with a larger body, when you have a team of experts versus one person trying to do it all, there is a benefit. And there is also a benefit to keeping that staff person who already knows that community, but having the larger team come above, help with branding and social media and proper CRMs and all of that. So there is a lot of opportunities for chambers to consider something else, and maybe it's even a shared service. Maybe you partner with another smaller chamber and you share the services. Maybe one is an expert in marketing and the other is in finance. So work together on that. I mean, nobody wants to see chambers fail. We're all here about the future proofing of chambers, and there's so many great ideas that chambers can do to work and collaborate, share services. We said merger is a dirty word too, but not really. I mean, there is a really successful model to do. And I'm just sharing my story, and I know you all have a story. And even collaboration, we're talking, Abbotsford is working with foundations, and their story is amazing. Foundations was a big topic at our CCEC just the past few days ago. Stu in Peterborough, I mean, he went through the process. Sarah with the Greater Parklands Chamber in Alberta just went through a merge. Fort Saskatchewan is merging with Lamont in Alberta. David with St. John in New Brunswick, they went through it. And again, there's many different models to this. Ottawa, I mean, Ian can speak to Ottawa going through this in 2018. They went through a huge merger. And then Niagara Falls, they have a very unique model. So there's 4 separate chambers under 1 staff with 4 different boards. So there's so many different ways and opportunities to reach out. And the great thing about our network is we want to be there to help each other. And so when we were going through this in 2016, there were other chambers doing it. We just didn't know who they were. So probably lessons learned. I mean, I wish there was a roadmap back then that chambers could follow. Even working with, Corporations Canada and changing your name and extending your boundaries and closing your boundaries. I mean, there is so many steps to it. But I mean, working with the Canadian chambers, I think this is such a great opportunity now for chambers to get together, work together, and to mentor each of us through this.
This is actually I should have mentioned at the top, this is a discussion that our colleague Tracy McGregor from the Ontario Chamber had started at the Ontario AGM this spring. And, there were so many good examples in Ontario that, of course, I've been talking to our colleagues across Canada. It's really a Canadian issue. And so there's lots of other areas. But it's not just, so you've gone through, and thank you, you've gone through some very good sort of organizational collaborations. I'll just open it up to the panel. Any other ideas that you have for whether it's collaboration on initiatives or organizational or Any good ideas?
Well, when our customers are telling us that they expect us to be more equitable, more sustainable, that means we have to find resources to become more equitable and more sustainable. And so chambers around the world are now taking a very intentional approach to business model innovation and outlining, not only outlining what customers expect, but connecting the dots with the resources that are required. And hats off to you, Jenna, for I look at it as all culture change for our chambers of commerce, getting over the parochialism, the traditions that need to be let go in order to find the resources, share the events in order to serve the customer better is the way to go. In Brampton, we've started in 2015 along with our chamber colleagues at the Toronto Region Board of Trade, the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce, and the 22 chambers along that rail line there, something called Canada's Innovation Corridor Business Council. And it's operated so well in terms of sharing advocacy, amplifying advocacy, and also holding a summit each year that can be quite profitable for the host chamber as well. So yeah, there's lots, to your point, there's lots of different models, and it's important to be intentional to really think about getting over those traditional parochial boundaries and serving the customer better.
And maybe just on sharing resources, a year ago, we realized that the back end of our operations were very, very outdated, and we needed to launch our digital transformation. And so we began the process of that, and we issued an RFP, and we were going through the process of interviewing different organizations to build a new CRM for us. And then we started having conversations with some of the chambers in the network, and we realized that there were other chambers who were doing the exact same process as us at the same time. And so we leveraged that strength of the network to be able to use the same organizations. And really, I mean, the one company that's doing our digital transformation is doing a few other digital transformations for other chambers in the network as well. And so you save on the costs, and you can learn from one another. And so I'd really encourage anybody who is in the same place that we were a year ago on digital transformation and looking at new CRM to reach out to myself or my team, and we're happy to share our journey because we just implemented our new system August 1st, and it's pretty good, a few bumps here and there, but we're really learning from our colleagues in the network. The other thing I wanted to say about collaboration is because I'm looking at Fiona from the BC Chamber, and Fiona and I have worked very closely, especially through the pandemic, and just sharing around advocacy. We did a lot of surveys together, and then we would hit the media together with some other counterparts in Vancouver and in BC as well. And I know I even saw Anita from the Surrey Board of Trade. We also worked together during the pandemic very closely in the beginning of the pandemic and understanding what the issues were regionally and then advocating to government. And so I think there is a lot of strength in the network, and we need to leverage that.
I think that's a very good point. There's been lots of collaboration during the pandemic. I think that's going to continue and needs to continue. In terms of the CRM, I think I've had 3 conversations with chamber executives this week alone, where they're talking about the CRM, digital transformation. What are you using? You know, what can I use? What do you suggest? So, you know, certainly urge people to go see Bridgitte and her staff. So thank you for that. Sort of last word on this topic. We can always come back to it, and there's lots of questions that I'm already looking at from the audience that'll refer us back. But
I just have one comment. So I know that the great debate has been galas and golf tournaments, and this was again a topic of conversation. What else can chambers do? Are you keeping the sacred cow? What other things can you do? But I also want to mention we do partner with our municipalities, and again, because of our cluster of the 10 around us, there is a gap in services, and so we know that as a regional body chamber, we can fulfill those. So working with our municipalities, we launched an entrepreneurship startup center. So it's businesses from 0 to 5 years. You don't need to be a chamber member. It's free services. And, you know, zero years just having that idea on what is the next step. And, you know, as a chamber, you hope to work with them as they successfully start their business. So we were able to launch that. That opened our 3rd storefront as a chamber and another resource. And the other one is, and I know this is another, tourism is, you know, chambers and tourism, but there was a gap in tourism in our region. Again, being a regional body, we saw that opportunity. So we have partnered with 6 different municipalities to do a regional tourism strategy. And again, it's been such a successful event. And then just lastly, back to the government of Alberta, we did also partner with them on a job connector. So it was a local job initiative, and we launched it in 2020 during COVID. And the first year we launched, we had 30,000 hits to our local job page. And this is really promoting, you know, the hyper-local jobs of our region of Leduc and Wetaskiwin. So just another type of a partnership. And actually, just 1 second quicker, we also have a service agreement to run our Downtown Business Association. And so for that, we were able to hire a director that runs both the Downtown Business Association as well as our Entrepreneurship Startup Center.
We know you're busy, Jen, so we want you to talk about this. This is great. I think we're going to switch to our third topic, and I want to start with you, Todd. So Todd is, I think everyone knows, he's the new vice chair for the Americas of the International Chamber of Commerce World Chambers Federation, and certainly the network appreciates your hard work, Todd, so congratulations on behalf of all of us on that. Can we also have, there's some slides that we need to put up, so for the technicians, if they can put the slides up. So Todd, from an international perspective, the focus is still on small business. It's on digitization. You've still got the same sort of fundamentals. But you know, take us through your work with ICC and what you're seeing and how chambers in Canada can learn from those international examples.
Thank you very much, and it truly is an honor to represent Canada there and to be on this panel as well. Jennifer, some fantastic examples, and Bridgitte, congratulations as well, the training that you've done in DEI. And this is, I guess, examples today, Ian, and you've asked me to kind of try to pull it all together. There are chambers around the world that are working together to outline a plan, a playbook, how you get started, what's your next step, and how you can work together to fully represent and be proactive in certain cases for what our customers are expecting. And I just wanted to share with you the honeycomb model. I'm more of a visual learner, and there's really 6 components. We've talked about some culture change now, some governance changes as well. And to step back, there was a recent poll a recent survey by the World Economic Forum, and almost 9 out of 10 from 21,000 adults surveyed over 28 countries, 9 out of 10, or 86%, said that they want to see a more equitable and sustainable world coming out of COVID. And when 9 out of 10 people across that large of a sample size, we really need to be, as I said earlier, intentional about the change, intentional about future-proofing our chambers and bringing about new innovations. The last 50 years might have looked like that. The next 50 years will be, more female-led, more sustainable, more technology-enabled members, customers, general public. And we really have to ask ourselves, how are we going to change our chamber, and will it be able to be an organization that businesses truly desire? And we look, if we slice the onion just a little bit more, peel the onion back, we're looking and fighting for the time and intention of our business members. We're asking them to make financial contributions in registrations and sponsorships and advertising. And of course, we want their insights and leaderships. And what that means is that we must deliver, extraordinary events consistently. We need to provide a dues structure that is relatable and is perhaps maybe even on a subscription base as opposed to annual. A lot of chambers of commerce are looking at different models that way. Our registrations have to be convenient, 3 clicks to get registered on all devices, mobile devices. I know a lot of you have made these changes already, but when we're selling sponsorships, the direct internalization of our ESG goals need to be clear on advertising. The Google Analytics are expected before the next investment is made. And of course, that all starts with catalytic leadership, embracing change, and you said kill the sacred cow, or at least getting over some of the parochial constraints that we've seen as chambers in the past. So over the last 2 years, over about an 18-month period, about 20 chambers from around the world, Europe, Asia, South America, North America, got together and put together a playbook, the Chamber Model Innovation Playbook. Now, I know many of you have seen it. It's a 71-page document. It outlines the task force's outcomes, its findings, but also provides examples of innovations that are occurring in chambers around the world. And it includes great diagrams, Osterwalder's business canvas, a strategic planning tool that's used by many in the startup community, are now the template for chamber model innovation. And I know that Ian has access to it. You can get it from him or from me afterwards. If you don't have it already, there's a landing page on Dubai Chamber's website dedicated to it. What I did, I'm more of a visual learner, so I put together this honeycomb model that kind of outlines what this renaissance that we're experiencing in our industry. And renaissances don't happen all that often in industries. And, we tend to call Chamber 1.0 the first 300-400 years where access to government and advocacy to get that rail line through your town, get that mill built. Chamber 2.0 being kind of the lasted for about 70 years, from 1920 to 1990, where we saw building member capacity as our competitive advantage. Getting involved in the certificates of origin business, for example. It was very club-like. I always think of it as membership has its privileges, that Amex commercial. And then from about 1990 to COVID, 2020, just in the last 30 years, there's been almost a dual focus that many of you have embraced: enterprise productivity, success at the individual business level, a dual focus to also include community prosperity. So we saw lots of our chambers getting involved in physician recruitment activities and other activities like that benefited not only our members, but the quality of life in our communities as well. So what is the next era of competitive advantage? And you can call it Chamber 4.0, but I know that this template that's been put together can be very, very helpful in getting you started. So it starts with embracing change, catalytic leadership. The business model innovation is that plan, that template that I showed you, Osterwalder's canvas, that can help you look at your membership, segment your membership, define the value propositions by segment, and then make the culture change that you need, the changes in your policies, in your bylaws, in how you find board members, find staff, etc. And then layer on the many different apps. We live in just a wonderful time in history right now. The technologies, the apps, the platforms that can help you change your processes. So that's generally the six elements. And I don't know that we've really named what this fourth era is, but I think it's got more of a global focus, and because of technology, more of an insight-driven competitive advantage component as well. And it really does involve all of what we've talked about here today in terms of standing for something great, internalizing those ESG goals, being able to listen better and more fully to our customers and engage them in the co-creation of our plans and just innovating and automating wherever we can. So Ian, that's kind of the outline of how it all comes together, and I hope that's helpful to you in the diagram. And like I say, there's lots of support material to learn from it as well.
Great, thanks, Todd. That is very helpful. And as Todd mentioned, we've got that document. We'll put it out in our broadcast material to the network and make sure that everyone has access to it. So thank you. We've talked about diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility. We've talked about chamber collaboration, international perspective. We'll go to the audience questions now that we have. We've got a number of them, and so we might be jumping all over, but those are typically the main topics. But there's also, I'm also going to give the panel, if you want to weave into your comments or even go now, if there's any other ideas, any other sort of future-proofing chamber ideas. Well, let's just open it up. Is there anything else before we get to the audience questions?
I just have funny because you mentioned certificate of origin, and I started the chamber 12 years ago and they called it chamberizing. If you come and get your documents stamped, you're getting chamberized. And so I didn't realize that was our own buzzword. And so there I am at the Western Association of Chamber Executives talking about the chamberizing that we do, and everyone is like, what? What is that? So, but there are so many different revenue streams, and again, I think at the CCEC, one of the most favorite topics was the non-dues revenue side, and we had kind of that minute to give it of chambers telling their story, and everyone has a story. Everyone is doing something great within their chamber, and it's so great to share that information and to steal from for your own chamber, like most of us have through the years of our time at the chamber.
Great, thank you. So our first question we have relates to the second question that I asked Jennifer, but anyone can answer. Do you know of any chambers that share a specialized staff person? Example, a communications or a policy person? And do you feel that this works? So this group has a lot of experience. There's other examples in the audience. I know there's many of us that have this, but I'll just open it up. Any specialized examples?
I can't think of the chamber, but I know they're out there, and we did again have this conversation of shared services, and if you're out there, we want to hear from you, which chamber, even put in the Slido, because it'd be great to identify you. But as far as, our team at the chamber, again, we have a director for our Downtown Business Association, also the director for our startup, Leduc and Wetaskiwin Entrepreneurship Center. So there are examples out there, and yeah, it would be great for chambers to share who you are on that side of it.
One of the most sustainable and effective sharing of staff that I'm aware of in Ontario is that with Newmarket and Vaughan. I think Abdus is here. Abdus is the VP of Government Relations and Policy for those two chambers that are in near proximity to one another. And when you think about the complexity of the issues that we're dealing with as chambers now, being able to recruit skilled individuals that have the breadth and capacity to manage files like that, it just makes sense to share and to come to some arrangement where they can be effective in both communities.
Yeah, that's a great example, that we do have them represented in the room today, Vaughan and Newmarket, so perfect example. I'm going to switch gears a bit. Bridgitte, you talked about the investments you put into DEI, and again, my way of using the acronym. What question is sort of what investment, time, resources have you put in to make it work?
Quite a bit, and I would say, it is sort of the piece of string can be never ending, depending on how much of this journey that each organization would want to go on. When it comes to our diversity and inclusion training, we did set up the Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Council, and so facilitating that committee, if you will, of 20 individuals does take staff time. And so, we are fortunate because we are a larger organization and we have staff to be able to do that. But we also then, as we were doing our own EDI audit, then I recognized that we had to have some internal resources if we were going to start making some changes as well. And then there was the ESG training that we're doing. And so under our programs department, where we offer different avenues and different programs to help build capacity in businesses, this has become a very large focus of it. And just very recently, we've hired an individual who will oversee our events, which continue to be a very prime revenue driver, of course, but our programs and our EDI initiatives. Because I think what we are learning as we're going on this journey, that it is a revenue stream and it is a program, but it is also something that we are putting in throughout our whole organization. So what I mean by that is that when we host events, whether it's, on energy or whether it's in a tourist-related event, we always have that lens now of diversity and inclusion. So everybody in the organization, regardless of what department they work in, whether it's events or advocacy and policy or membership, they are thinking with that lens. And so we ensure that when we're hosting events that our panel has diversity. And so it really is an investment that continues to grow, but we recognize that somebody need to have oversight of it and to be able to think about the resources that do need to be specifically put to that.
Great, thank you. Not necessarily staying with you, Bridgitte, but the question is back to DEI. Have you made any specific efforts with businesses owned by Black and people of color? And if so, what successes have you had and why?
I'll just maybe briefly speak to this and then I'll hand it over to the panel. But as we were starting on this journey, we recognized that was a gap in our membership. And so we did form a partnership with the Black Business Council of BC. We also have ensured that there's representation from the Black community on our DLC. We have made different kind of partnership agreements with different Indigenous communities. We make sure we've got Indigenous representation on our DLC. And we are continuing to make those inroads into different communities that we don't have those connections with. The accessibility community is another one. We became a member of President's Club group as well. So for us, as I say, we are a couple of years into this journey, and why we have taken some significant steps. We've got a long way to go, and so it is never ending. There's lots of other community groups that we don't have access to yet, or we don't have those connections with, and we'll continue to make those.
Great, thank you. We'll open it up to the panel.
Yeah, I guess on the DEI question, again, I just feel tremendously fortunate to be in Brampton, and certainly representation of persons of color and businesses operated by persons of color is just a natural part of what we do through our weekly member profiles, through our excellence awards, etc. And although there are other chambers of commerce and business associations, and we don't have formal agreements with them, we respect that the unique value that they provide, and always look for opportunities for synergy.
Great, Jennifer?
Yeah, just we are just getting into this with our Welcoming Workplace series, and so it's fortunate to hear from Bridgitte and to actually for our team, even to meet with your team, just how we can learn more and learn more about your programming to roll out. So these conversations are so important. So that's all I have on that.
Great, thank you. Again, all over the place, so we're going to go to CRM. I'm sure it's everyone's favorite topic. What do you use? Everyone wants to know, what do you use? Many use Chambermaster. Is there a technology? And I'll just quickly go through the three of you if you
So we use Chambermaster, and we're happy with Chambermaster. We know that there are capabilities in it that can help us automate more of our processes. We're concurrently looking for other solutions that are there, and automating the routine tasks, the lead generation tasks. We established a new lead generation program that involved targeting businesses by neighborhood, by sector, CEOs of those companies by certain age as well, the traits, and automating outreach through Facebook, where they are, the channels that they're using through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through Google Display Ads. And this experiment is what I'll call it, was not a lot of money, and we learned a lot from it by measuring click-through rates to see if we're hitting the right markets, by seeing the engagement in invitations to our online meetings, and then of course ultimately the result, or the measurement of what was the conversion rate in about 1 in 5 from this lead generation program, which was born out of necessity, I should say. When we had the restrictions and we weren't able to go out and meet with customers in their place of business, we were looking for a tool where we could still find them, and this has worked out really well for us. And so always looking for apps that are out there, testing them, experimenting with them. Doesn't necessarily mean a big investment. in a new software right away. But again, when we look through the playbook, these little experiments can bring big dividends.
Jennifer?
Yes, we launched Chamber Master in 2012. Confusingly, Gross Zone owns Chamber Master, but this past summer, actually this summer of 2021, now we're using Gross Zone. So Gross Zone owns Chamber Master, but Gross Zone also has Gross Zone as a CRM. So we went to that next step. We were doing some customized programming for our county. We just found that Gross Zone, we could create more of our own fields. There was better reporting, although it is a big endeavor. If you're looking to switch your CRM or go to something new, there's always going to be hiccups with it. And it would be great to find out who else in the room is using Gross Zone, because I feel, we're after a year into it, we are just getting to where we need to be to work out, how you figure things out. So we'll probably stick with it now for a while because we're into it now, but that's what we use at this time.
Great. Bridgitte?
We've moved everything to Microsoft, and so that's our platform that we're using. And this is August 1st as we just switched everything over, and so we are still working through some of the bumps that there would be with any kind of transformation and change. But generally speaking, it is going really well. And it is also another journey where there's a lot of learning and a lot of change that's required.
Yeah, we use Microsoft as well, and so I certainly hear you on the bumps and the time it takes to integrate. We've all gone. We've talked about non-dues revenue. I don't want to just focus on that, but we've got membership revenue, we've got sponsorship revenue. With the pandemic, how has your relationship with your sponsors changed? And sort of what's the value added? How do you deliver value to your sponsors in a post-pandemic world?
We were very fortunate to, I guess, build a sponsorship program that was sticky. And in times of turmoil and uncertainty, our sponsors stuck with us. And I think one of the reasons that the program continued to work for us is the direct connection that we could make to how the sponsorship value was not just on a transactional or business development point of view, but related to the corporate social responsibility objectives, the initiatives that we were doing to support energy conservation and climate action, the efforts that we were doing for social justice, particularly inclusion of and empowerment of women's leadership, and just the transparency of how we're changing, how we're modeling change as a chamber. Those were the things that seemed to resonate really well with sponsors because they have their own ESG objectives, CSR objectives, and they look to us as being a reliable ally that could help them meet their own objectives through some of the initiatives that we were doing.
I know there's probably a few people, because I talked to a few people over the last few days who are former consultants, recovered consultants. And so I think that, myself and I've got such a great team, we put on that consultant's hat when we're talking to potential sponsors and asking them how they want to show up, what matters to them, and having those discussions about what is member value mean to you. So it is very much a tailored sort of agreement with each different individual partner. And when it comes to some of the EDI work, there are particular partners who wanted to very much be involved in that space. And so we've done that. And that might be through recognition, it might be through involvement in the programs, it might be through some advocacy initiatives, but it really is very personalized. And I think that while that does take time, I think it really does matter, because when those sponsors are coming back to renewal, they know that they've been heard and that they have seen member value because we've been able to deliver on what particular requests and asks that they've had.
Very good. I like that. That's certainly my views. Jennifer, do you have any?
Yeah, I guess we all have a story over COVID, right? You had to cancel your Business Awards Gala. We were one of those ones. We had to cancel the night before, people just started dropping off. And so the Chivari chairs were set up, and there we had to cancel. And we lost $30,000 on that event. But all of our sponsors stayed on. We created an e-news recognizing, all of the winners, and all our sponsors stayed on, and they have continued to stay on, regardless of pivoting into the kind of the Zoom world and that. And then we have them back now that we've opened up again. So we are, again, fortunate, and I think other chambers have been in the same place where their sponsors still see value and they still want to continue on with you. So.
Yeah, and I want to sort of take that a little further. There's, it's a little different for a national or a provincial chamber, but from your perspective, what's the future of the hybrid approach? I mean, are we going to go to hybrid? Are we going to go continue with virtual? There's lots of fatigue, of course, but I still think, you know, our members are receiving more from us. They're getting a lot more exposure. Any thoughts on virtual or hybrid?
I just have to mention the owl. Does anyone have the owl as far as this? Yeah, amazing. Hands in the room. It's probably the best tool. Our board loves it. You know, you can still meet in person and have the 3 people on Zoom, but it's probably the best camera tool that you can use on a virtual setting. And you can also use it for smaller events. Because of where we are in our counties and we have such a large landmass, that we still want to have that hybrid event depending on what it is. And so we launched a small business series where we do one educational event per month, but we will continue that virtually, and members love it, and it's topical to what's happening, and our sponsors love it, our members love it, and it doesn't matter where you are, they can still log in and get it. And of course, we all know, you know, I'm going to log into that webinar and I'll watch it later, and we've all been there as well. So, but yeah, we will continue with both models for sure.
I don't know about all of you, but I'm so tired of Zoom. So I am one of the ones who is really advocating to get people back in person. But I also know that there is some risk in that because we're going into the flu season and cases of COVID could go back again. And so we do have in our back pocket that we will continue to do some hybrid events or some virtual events as we need to. And so over the past few months, we have continued that, and we do our virtual events. We've partnered with a very small production studio to try and give it a bit more production value. And so that has been really great for us, but I know that's not actually available to a lot of the smaller chambers. But when it comes to the hybrid events, we also, for some of the bigger events where we've got more sponsorship dollars available to us, we'll have an in-person event but have a hybrid option as well, so people can join in virtually. And that was more popular 6 months ago than it is now. So I think I would go back to where I started my comments, is about what is the best way to deliver member value? Is it virtual? Is it in person? And just being able to, I hate this word, but to pivot and to adapt and to be flexible and recognize that where we are now is maybe not where we're going to be in 6 months or 12 months from now.
Personally, I like the word pivot. I used to coach basketball.
My panelist colleagues make some great suggestions. We refer to Olivia as our newest staff member. So yes, the OWL technology is very good. And to an earlier point that you made, Bridgitte, it's so important to listen to your customers. So you might make a decision on virtual or in person today, but it's so important to include feedback loops in everything we do. QR codes now on table cards after events, asking the question, would you prefer virtual or in person for the next, is so important. That's point one, to ensure we've got robust feedback loops. But also, just because they answer one way in March, don't wait till the next March to ask them. Ask them again in 60 days, in 90 days. Because I found that when the restrictions were lifted, everyone said, oh, wonderful, let's get back in person. And then when the actual meeting came, they remembered how convenient it was to attend meetings in pajamas. So we have to continue to ask and over time as well, because I think this question, this very simple question that you ask, Ian, hybrid or not, is an evolving, the responses may be evolving over the next year or so.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And, you know, we've certainly recognized at the Canadian Chamber that, you know, we've got obviously a large geography, so we're going to have to continue to do many different things for our members. Switching up again, we're going to turn to advocacy very quickly. Have you been able to monetize your advocacy work? Again, these are questions from the room. So,
well, maybe not monetize, but we have been able to increase some revenue by attracting partners on certain advocacy projects, and then also partner with other organizations for projects. Despite the size of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, we don't have a huge advocacy team. Hi, David. Hi, Lindsay. You guys do great work. So we do need to partner with other organizations, and sometimes we also need different kind of financial support from other corporate sponsors. And so for us, it is a model that we do rely on it. I wouldn't say monetize, though. I think for us, it's more about how can we get the work done in the most efficient way.
Okay, great. Any other?
We're a smaller chamber, but we still have 1,100 members, so we're an okay size. And Richard's here; he does our government relations and policy work. I guess for us, it isn't that we are getting large dollars from corporations to do our policy work, but our Class 1 trucking policy, we had a lot more trucking companies join because of that, and they saw the work that we do, and now they're more engaged in other things that we do. So as far as monetizing, it would be growing that membership base based on our advocacy work.
And consistent with my panelists here, monetization of advocacy, yes, occurs, but it's not putting a logo on a research paper, for example. It could be, but it's more about integrating what we've talked about earlier, having a robust CRM where you can capture the main issues of your largest employers, the most important GR advocacy issues that you have available in easy to access talking points on the advocacy issue, so that when opportunities arise for you to meet that member of the Legislative Assembly, MPP or MP, you can quickly on your phone remind yourself of what the key advocacy issues are, and that grows the impact, grows the influence, and that you can remind and keep a victory log as well, and make sure it's in the database, so that when you go for the annual investment again, you have handy the victories, you demonstrate an understanding of the things that are relevant for that corporation, and that's what I call monetizing advocacy. It's really that back end can really help support the revenue generation.
Can I just also say, the power of the network again, here we're all coming together across Canada with different policies. We can all use your policies to go back to our community and say, a tax policy came out of Vancouver. And so there's other ways of all of us growing our membership base based on our network here and the policies that we put forward every single year. And it may strike it with someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, well put.
Vancouver didn't do a tax policy, by the way. I just threw that out there.
But they might next year. So
yeah, so a very tangible activity that we can all do coming out of this conference is to look at our resolutions, to look at the preface as well as the recommendations, and carve them up into bite-sized chunks that you can amplify through Twitter, through Facebook, through LinkedIn, to remind your membership of the time that you've invested over the conference and the relevance of what we're talking about here.
Great, thank you. This morning in our wake-up session that Mia Saint-Aubin put on, she talked about burnout, she talked about mental health. So our next question is, the impact of the pandemic on our collective mental health has been greater than the economic impact, and that will continue. It's keeping businesses from working at full capacity, and productivity is down. So any thoughts on boosting supports in terms of mental health with your workers, with your members?
We've done a lot of that work, and some of it has been through our Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Council for our members, but we've also done a lot of work listening to our employees for our internal organization, and we have an employee engagement committee, so they are the ones who give us recommendations, but it is a significant problem. Bruce from Victoria, we spoke about this a lot last night. Mental health and wellness is a significant issue in all of our workplaces and in all of our members' workplaces. So, it is about being able to find resources and tools to help all of our own staff members and also all of our members, because we're all dealing with the same issues. And so, whether that's holding a workshop on mental health tools and resources, or it's developing own policies within your organization, I think it's something that cannot be said enough. It is significant, and I think if we were to ask anybody to put your hand up, if you've been burned out in the last 2 years, we'd all stick our hands up. It is a big problem.
So we did a mental health workplace series just through our small business series and for the learning for the businesses, but we also partnered with our municipalities and the FCSS departments, and we had Tyler Smith from the Humboldt Broncos come and speak. And if you're ever looking for an engaging speaker on mental health, he's amazing. And so we held this event, but then we also had all of our social supports for businesses in the entire both regions come out and talk about what they do within and the employee supports that are out there. And this has turned out, this was our first annual event and everyone wants it back again next year. The county is all, it was just such a successful, the food bank was there. Every type of social support out there in our region was there to talk to the business community.
I'm just happy that you asked the question because, mental illness or mental health is more invisible than, other injuries, physical injuries, for example. And I just don't think we're doing enough. And the more that we can do to, be aware of what might be beyond the surface of our staff, our board members, our volunteers, our members, and cut them some slack and be grateful for the time that they spend with us. Be kind where we can, and that applies to ourselves. Be kind to ourselves as well, because we've just gone through 2.5, and I guess it's continuing to a certain extent, some very tumultuous years, and just be aware of this somewhat invisible impact on people, I think, and count our blessings is so very important.
Right. Well, you most in the audience can't see the timer that's going, but it's turned red, so I think everyone's gotten a little tenser and tighter. I do want to thank our panelists. You've done a fantastic job. Lots of issues. We jumped all over the place. Future proofing is very important to the chambers, to the chamber network. We're going to continue that. It's going to be a theme that the Canadian Chamber in particular works with, but in partnership with network members. And so I want to have a big thanks for our panelists. Bridgitte Anderson, President and CEO of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade. Jennifer Garries, CEO of the Leduc, Nisku, and Wetaskiwin Regional Chamber of Commerce. And Todd Letts, the President and CEO of the Brampton Board of Trade. So thank you very much to everyone, and a warm applause, please.